Elon was adjusting the telescope when X walked in and said that heaven is real and waiting for them, freezing Elon mid-movement with held breath, asking where X heard that. To which X replied he didn't hear it but saw it last night, his voice steady and certain, not trembling or afraid. Elon sat down slowly, unnerved, asking what X saw, and X whispered about a light brighter than rockets, but soft, hugging him without touching, saying he couldn't stay yet, but it was waiting, sending chills through Elon, not from fear or doubt, but a question deep enough to shake logic. When Elon asked if X was dreaming, X shook his head, explaining he was awake while Elon slept, looking out the window and seeing it in the sky. Not the stars, because stars don't speak, but this light did, telling X to tell his dad that he's still being waited for, causing Elon's hands to tremble slightly as he stood up and walked to the window, though the sky looked ordinary. That night, Elon didn't check markets or prototypes, but rewatched baby videos of X, stared at the stars a long time, and said nothing. And at breakfast, when X asked if Elon thought he'd go to heaven, Elon hesitated, saying he didn't know, to which X smiled, saying it's okay because they already know he's coming, humbling Elon, the man who sees the future, by a boy who saw beyond it, making that day one where science made room for wonder. Elon started asking quiet questions to himself that data couldn't answer, wondering if X was right and if he was late to something eternal. As X drew a picture that day of them holding hands beneath golden light beams, explaining it was them going home through love, not space, prompting Elon to laugh nervously, not mockingly, because love had never been his map, though this child made it his compass. X described the light having a voice, not like Siri but like an inner hug, saying little except that they miss Elon, haunting him as he sat up in bed that night, wondering what kind of realm would miss a man who'd never been there, looking at pictures of his younger, brash, disconnected self, whispering if he was being waited for and by whom. The silence, not answering, but not leaving either. He opened a dusty, untouched Bible given by a friend years ago, turning to a random page that read, "Come to me, all who are weary," to which Elon whispered he was, staring at those words without reading more, wondering how a 5-year-old might know more than the world's brightest minds. And at breakfast, when X asked if he'd talked to Jesus yet, Elon chuckled nervously, saying not yet, to which X nodded, saying it's okay because he talks first, leaving Elon, the builder of the future, searching through childhood drawings and ancient scriptures, not for invention, but for invitation. A week later, X ran into Elon's room with wide eyes, saying the light came back. Same voice, same place, but this time said more, prompting Elon to sit up quickly and ask what it said, to which X paused before answering that Elon has a key in his chest, but forgot how to use it, stunning Elon as X placed his hand on Elon's heart, saying this key opens the door home, cracking something in Elon, not in bone, but in belief. X added that the light said, he's helping Elon remember, and when he does, the key will glow again. And this time, Elon didn't laugh, but listened, staying home that day with no conferences or launches, watching X color while thinking his son sees something he's blind to, messaging Rumi to ask if kids can see heaven, to which Rumi replied instantly that they often see clearer than adults because they haven't unlearned wonder, a message Elon read 5 times. That night, Elon whispered a few words, not to Twitter or an engineer, but quietly, asking God to keep talking if this was him. And the next morning, X handed Elon a note saying he knew Elon would ask, with a crayon drawing inside of Elon holding a glowing heart labeled "Still Working," leaving Elon wordless as he folded the note, put it in his wallet, and stared at it like it was the most important formula he'd ever seen. Because sometimes heaven doesn't thunder, but draws with crayons and speaks through whispers. Elon visited a children's hospital for a charity event, expecting just PR and philanthropy. But a boy whispered, asking if Elon believed in heaven, to which he hesitated, saying he didn't know. And the boy smiled, saying it's okay because heaven believes in him, freezing Elon, while another child said they dreamt of flying in light, not a rocket, like the sky hugged them, echoing X's words, leaving Elon shaken as he sat outside afterward, muttering what was happening. The stars above, not blinking, but something inside burning. That night, X asked if Elon met anyone who'd seen it too, and Elon nodded, saying a few, to which X whispered they're already halfway home, prompting Elon to journal for the first time in years, writing, "If children are the messengers we ignore," closing the book and weeping, not from fear, but awe, as something holy began circling his logic, soft but undeniable. X crawled into bed with him, whispering not to worry because heaven isn't in the sky, but waiting behind love. And when Elon asked how he knew, X said, because Elon hugged him like the light did, with eyes closed, leading Elon to pull him close, counting not his fortune that night, but the miracle in his arms. Elon stood under the stars with X, who said they're beautiful, but not where heaven is, pointing to his heart when Elon asked where, explaining it's where light waits, the kind that doesn't need rockets, just listening, causing Elon to stare at the sky differently that night, not as distance, but as design, asking why heaven would want him. To which X answered, because Elon forgot how to wonder but is now remembering, making the sky seem closer. Elon whispered if he hears him now, and X smiled, saying he's always heard, just waits until Elon stops proving, and starts asking, prompting Elon to nod and ask that night who he is and why he cares about him. Less a question and more a surrender. As X said, he told him Elon would ask, relaying that he said because he made him and misses him, catching Elon's breath, not as a quote, but a calling. Elon didn't sleep that night, staying on the porch with arms around X, watching stars like scripture, whispering if this was real or if he was losing his mind. But peace answered louder than reason, and X stirred, whispering Elon wasn't losing his mind, but finding home, leading Elon to finally close his eyes, not to escape, but to rest, perhaps for the first time in belief. Elon visited a small chapel near his childhood home, not kneeling or lighting candles, but sitting silently, awkwardly, yet there, looking at the stained glass, and whispering if heaven is waiting. Was he late? With no one answering, but his heart beating differently. The air smelling of dust and incense, but feeling like a memory of somewhere he once belonged before forgetting. X came with him, sat beside him, saying nothing until leaning in to say heaven likes when you show up, even if you don't know why, making Elon smile and say he's showing up, to which X nodded, calling it faith, prompting Elon to laugh softly, not in mockery, but realization, walking to the front to touch the altar's edge, thinking so many came here for help, maybe he could too, whispering he didn't know what he believed yet, but wanted to, that want being enough, holy even. And on the way out, seeing a plaque that read, "Blessed are those who hunger," touching it and saying he's starving, as X reached for his hand, saying that means he's almost there, which Elon held tight, finding in that tiny chapel something eternal for the man who builds futures to believe in. People noticed Elon's change. His team said he was quieter in meetings, but kinder, more patient, like he had more time, even though he had less, smiling genuinely, not performatively or strategically, like someone who'd seen something worth smiling for, asking different questions, not about invention, but about who they were becoming. And when a staffer asked if something happened, Elon said his son told him heaven is waiting, so he stopped running. A sentence that changed more minds than a TED Talk ever could. He put a framed note in his office with X's words that they already know he's coming, reminding him daily that heaven is not earned but remembered, softening company culture as hard edges rounded out, with one intern saying it feels safer now, like they matter more than the mission, to which Elon smiled, saying they always did, showing how one vision of light started shining through every hallway. Elon had lunch with an old mentor, a devout atheist physicist, who said Elon looked different, less like a man climbing, and more like one who's arrived, to which Elon nodded, saying maybe he found what he wasn't looking for, prompting the scientist to scoff if he meant God. But Elon shrugged, saying he meant grace, explaining it came from a place you can't measure but feel when quiet, speaking not with argument, but authenticity. So the man listened. When asked if his son did this, Elon smiled, saying X didn't do it, but reminded him he was already being called, sitting in silence a while before the scientist said maybe he'd been listening to the wrong frequencies, to which Elon replied to try listening inside. And a week later, the man messaged that he prayed. It felt strange, but also like home, making Elon weep alone, not from sadness, but the joy of one more soul opening, because heaven waits for every type of heart, even the skeptical ones. Elon started writing down raw, unpolished prayers, asking God to teach him to love without needing to control, to let X never lose this light even when the world gets loud, and to let him become who God always saw in him even when he couldn't, folding them and keeping them in a drawer, a sacred habit only he knew about, until X found one by accident, asking if Elon writes to him too, to which Elon nodded, saying he needed to speak finally, making X smile that he hears every line, even the crumpled ones, and Elon smiled back, because even his mistakes felt redemptive, prayer not making him perfect, but present, which he'd missed all along, not in tech, but in truth. So he kept writing, turning doubt into dialogue, one whisper at a time. X asked what if they get to heaven, and it's nothing like they thought, to which Elon replied he hoped it feels like home. And when X asked what if Elon isn't ready, Elon looked out the window, saying he thinks he's finally becoming someone who could be. And when X asked how he'd know, Elon smiled, saying because he'll want more of him, not more of himself, making his eyes water that night when X prayed out loud, thanking God for teaching Elon how to listen, healing rather than hurting. Elon wrote one last prayer that night to never forget the day his son showed him heaven, needing no visions or proof, just presence, which was enough, closing his eyes not fearing death, but readying for a life that never ends, because eternity begins the moment we wake up. And through a child's whisper, Elon finally woke up. On X's birthday, Elon asked what he wanted, and X smiled, saying, just Elon, but if heaven sends something too, that's a bonus, making Elon laugh and ask what's better than heaven, pulling out a handmade journal of their journey. Every word, light and vision X spoke about captured, astonishing X that Elon remembered it all, to which Elon nodded, saying it remembered him, and X just reminded him how to see it, hugging tightly as X whispered it was his favorite gift, better than toys or even time machines, reading it together by candlelight. a father and son, not building rockets, but recognizing radiance, with heaven coming not in fireworks, but in stories shared and silences honored. As X wrote his own wish to always remind others where home is, and Elon whispered one back to follow that light all the way home. A year after the first vision, Elon sat for an interview titled When the Genius Met Grace, where the host asked his greatest discovery, to which he answered that love waits even when we're late, pausing the host, who asked if he still builds for the future, prompting Elon to smile that he does, but now builds for forever, with clips going viral not for shock, but for softening. One tweet saying Elon cried while talking about heaven, making them cry too, as the world needed not another launch, but light, which Elon gave for a moment. An X later watched, saying it was Elon's best talk because it wasn't his, but his, leading people to ask not for tech updates, but the journal, which Elon promised one day, when the last page is written, because some stories are too sacred to finish until heaven writes the end. Elon visited X's school to talk about technology, but saw a poster reading, "Faith is stronger than fear," changing his mind to talk about light instead, telling the kids his son said heaven is waiting, and for the first time, he believed someone more than himself, with one student asking how to find heaven, to which Elon smiled, saying by asking better questions and listening longer than they're used to, and when they asked him to pray at the end, he didn't decline, thanking God for light that speaks, kids who see, and heaven that waits, leaving the room silent as something holy spoke, with one teacher crying, never thinking they'd hear that from him. And Elon walked out not as a mogul, but as a man who remembered what matters. The chalkboard that once taught numbers, now holding the truth that heaven is waiting. Ask why. Elon lay in bed, with X asleep beside him, looking at the stars one more time, whispering to the sky that it's been patient, and he's ready now, letting go of every unspoken regret, doubt, and need to control, receiving something wordless but whole in its place. A voice in his heart saying to come home. Not now, but one day, to which he replied, he will, believing now, tears streaming not from pain, but promise, looking at X and whispering he was right, that heaven waits, sleeping that night like a child, held by more than memory. Because when you believe in home, you finally rest. Elon wrote one last entry in the journal, saying heaven wasn't a destination, but a whisper he followed home, closing the book and handing it to X, saying it's his now, with X holding it like a treasure. And when Elon asked if he'd keep listening, X nodded, always standing under the stars one more time, silent, watching, as Elon whispered thanks to the sky for waiting. Heaven replying not in thunder, but in peace, needing no more evidence as he had enough grace. The man who built rockets finally finding rest, not by escaping Earth, but by embracing eternity. And somewhere beyond the stars, heaven smiled because another son had come home.